Welcome to Community, the TV show. I'm Kathy Antunes, guest hosting for Annette Sherman. Today, we have a special treat. We're going to be talking about multi-generational living, leveraging technology to age in place, because author Lisa Cini is with us today. She's an entrepreneur, a designer, and Lisa, you've written the book, it's called Boom, The Baby Boomer's Guide to Leveraging Technology to Preserve Your Independent Lifestyle and Thrive. It sounds like the perfect audience for so many, topic for so many people here in Sarasota. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Your design is different. So you are an interior designer, but
Yes.
you design for people to age in place. Tell us how you got started in that field.
Well, I think, when I think back, I was an acute care designer. So I did a lot of work in hospitals. And then I ended up moving into senior living, and that was about 25 years ago. And I loved what we did. And then the company was sold, and I was asked by two gentlemen, so I didn't have a glass ceiling, the owner and the chairman, to start my own company. And I was able to go out there and do interior design for seniors. And so I've done that for a long time. My team has done a great job. But then when my grandmother started to get a little bit ill and moved in with my mother and father, I realized there might be something different. So we actually had hosted her 90th birthday party at our house, and I had my kids in middle school and my husband.
Wow.
And she was 90 and living with my parents, and she danced all night long. Wow. And first of all, she was a Baptist, so that was really weird. And she just had a great time, and I thought, oh my gosh, I have to rethink how I do things. I was planning on moving my parents in with us, but not my grandma. And so we sold the house, and we got a house that everybody could fit into, and did this multi-generational experiment. And we did it for a couple reasons. One, I had kids that were going to go to college, so I wasn't able to be affording to have them in college, pay for my parents in senior living, and my grandmother. And then the other thing was they didn't want to go. So,
Wow, your kids wanted to be at home.
my kids wanted to be
you.
at home. My grandmother did not want to go into senior living, neither did
Okay.
my parents. So we all moved in together and embarked on this great experiment.
That's fantastic. It's such a unique, creative approach to addressing the issues of elder care and senior living. But tell me about senior design. How is that different? What did you notice as your career progressed? How did that go?
Yeah, I think when I started what we would call assisted living today was much more independent. You might not need help with a little bit of things, but you lived in almost like a country club setting, and that had meals and maybe help with medications and that.
Yeah.
And now it's much more heavy care. And now we have dementia and Alzheimer's care. So it's a striking difference from what it was 20 years ago. And I think that's part of the reason why baby boomers don't want to go into senior living.
Yeah.
It's no longer kind of an independent feeling. When you have to ask for a key to go to the bathroom in the main lobby,
Yeah, that's a big difference.
it's a big difference. You don't have to do that at the restaurant. You don't have to do that at the hotel you're staying in.
And so how are those environments designed differently? I mean, there may be things we don't necessarily notice that improve the quality of life or the independence of residents who are in an assisted living environment. But from the designer's standpoint, what are those things, and how might people watching adapt those to their own homes?
Well, I'm glad you asked.
Yeah.
So I like to follow the LOVE method. So that's light, optimize, visual, and ease. So light is so important. Aging eyes, and as a senior, I don't feel like I'm a senior, but I'm getting to be a senior. You require 70% more light than a 20-something-year-old just to be able to see. And so having the lights much brighter and color corrective is huge. Having contrast between the floor and the walls and a handrail makes it a lot easier. So things that cue you, it might be artwork, it might be time of day, getting out and letting your body know that It's got enough sunshine so it knows when to go to sleep for your circadian rhythm.
Right.
So biophilic design, the visual, bringing the outside in, having the proper heights on seats. That's a big deal. In the density of a cushion. There's a difference when you go to a resort and you want to sink into a sofa.
Yeah.
And really be comfortable.
Uh-huh.
But if you're older, you may never be able to get out.
You want the support, don't you?
You need to have a little more
Yeah.
support. You need to have arms where they need to be. You need to have a little more density so that you're still comfortable, but you can get yourself out.
Yeah.
So all those kinds of little things that are tweaks that you can do to keep yourself more independent and safe.
That's fascinating. Because it is very fine-tuned, the approach, and very specific. But you talk about, the title of your book is about leveraging technology.
Yes.
And I'm sure there's many people who are boomers who aren't necessarily comfortable with a lot of technology. So how do you evaluate that and where to bring the technology in?
So first of all, I used the multi-generational experiment to experiment on my family with their permission.
Yes.
And now with their permission.
They don't mind being guinea pigs.
They didn't mind being guinea pigs,
Okay.
but there were a lot of things that not only boomers, but my clients were afraid of. And I thought, well, let me try these out because I think in my gut, they're good. So one was bidet toilet seats.
Yeah.
It's not a comfortable subject to talk about.
Very European.
It is,
Right? They
but
all have them there.
That's exactly right. In Japan and China, in public spaces. When I moved my parents and grandmother in, the last thing that I wanted to do was be responsible for potentially having to help them toilet. Whether it's a spouse or anybody.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to do that. It's not comfortable for the person helping, and it's not comfortable for the person receiving.
Right.
So that was one thing that you can do with technology. Lighting that actually data mines, and when I say data mine, it just gathers data. So it would let me know where my grandmother was at.
Really?
And everyone says, well, why would you do that? Well, one, some people don't want cameras. But two, if she got up 5 times in the middle of the night, she might have a UTI.
Yeah, and the doctor would need to know. That would be really useful information to share with the
100%.
doctor, right?
So
Yeah.
before it became a crisis, we were able to see that something might be askew and then get her to the doctor before it was an ER visit.
Wow.
So that kind of technology, Alexa and Google, those are fantastic. Those are personal assistants.
They are.
I
That's
mean,
true.
I use mine every day. I say, hey, Google, what time is it? It'll probably answer me right now. What's the weather? Tell me a joke. Remind me to take my pills. That used to not be possible. So all those little types of tweaks with technology, Nest, being able to see who's outside your house before you answer the door.
Really?
That's
yes.
a great thing.
Yeah, that is a great thing. And, I have to say I haven't taken advantage of all those benefits. But I can see how they would really help somebody age in place because most people do want to stay in their homes. And
90%.
Right.
Yes.
And actually, cognitively, we do better in familiar surroundings. Isn't that true?
It is 100% true. The only reasons not to is one, if you want to be in community and you don't have a lot of people around you. So let's say your kids have moved off and your neighbors have passed on and you really are no longer connecting.
And you want company.
And you want company. So that's a great reason. Or if you can no longer take care of your daily needs, cooking, cleaning, medications, and you don't want someone to come into your home.
Yeah, the food is really important in
Yes.
any assisted living facility, right? And I know
It
a
is.
lot of women are happy that they're not having to deal with cooking every day.
It
It's
is.
a nice benefit.
It's also a negative, though. And it depends, not for my generation,
Okay.
but for my grandmother's, for a man, when you take away his work and take away his car, when those freedoms are taken away, the ego gets hurt.
Yeah.
For a female, when you take away the ability to cook,
Really?
and a lot of people move mom into senior living because they're afraid she's going to leave the stove on. So there's technology that you can put in that'll actually turn off the stove if it's been on too long, or the stove cooktop, so that you don't have a fire and you
That's
can still be
terrific.
safe.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd have that issue. I mean, I like cooking, but
Yeah.
But I can understand how it would be a loss of freedom.
Yes.
So tell us, you brought some visuals, and I'd love to give us an idea so we could really see what your house, it's a 10,000 square foot home. You've decided to go for a home with lots of space.
Yes.
And have your grandmother, your parents, and your children there with you. So there's 4 generations.
So yeah,
Right?
what we did was, so the first house that my grandmother was in and my kids and that was about 4,000 square feet. And we did that all together. And what I found was that so many people wanted to come in and see what we were doing.
Yeah.
And they wanted to see the toilets, they wanted to see the cameras, they wanted to see the contrast and the design, the Alexa and the Google and all the different lights and different things like that. So I bought a mansion, and it is 10,000 square foot. It's going to be Airbnb, and we're putting all the latest technology so anyone can come and try it out.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
There's nothing like actually seeing it. Yeah, so I'm wondering if we can pull up the visuals that you brought, and you can explain them to the audience. This is your family.
That is my family.
Right?
So that's my father and my mother, and then my grandmother. She was probably 94 or 95 in that
Wow.
photo. And then my 2 children, myself and my husband.
Terrific. And so this is the family that's living all together.
Yes.
And there we have your son. Is that your son and your dad?
It is. So
Yeah?
we travel together quite a bit. And so I find
Okay.
that that's really great to have that multi-generational connection. So that is my son and my father on our recent trip to Italy.
In Rome.
And
yeah.
then my grandmother and my daughter. And my grandmother actually at 86 went to Japan with us.
How fantastic
Yes.
that she's got her great-granddaughter with her. That's really
It is.
That's such
It's
an
a huge
unusual
blessing, yes.
Yeah. Okay, and there's your grandma? Is that
That
right?
is. So when I talked about biophilic design, which is
Mm-hmm.
basically bringing nature in, she's sitting in front of a viewing window that we had for the bees.
Yeah,
And
and
so,
beekeeping is...
exactly. She wasn't a little sure-footed. She couldn't get outside as much, but she could sit there and watch us gather the honey and really be involved in the whole process.
Oh, okay, that's fantastic.
Uh-huh.
So tell me about how does all the space work out in your home?
Oh.
Because I mean, it's big,
Yes,
right? Everybody
yes.
has their own space, which
Right.
which is great. But how did you come to arrange it, design it? How does the kitchen work? I'm curious.
Great.
To know.
The kitchen is a really interesting part. Is that we had an old house, 1914 built, and most kitchens are opened up to you don't have a separate dining room. So it was very important for me to maintain the dining room.
Okay.
So for my grandmother, you eat in the dining room. You don't eat in front of the TV.
Yes. Yeah. That's nice anyway.
It is.
I think.
And
yeah.
we were able to kind of resurrect something that I didn't have in my family before we started living together. Like, I didn't realize how important it was. I did when I was younger.
Yeah.
But with my own kids, to sit down and break bread and have a meal together and not have the phone ring, and for my son to take off his hat or my grandmother would get
Yeah,
upset.
That family time.
That family time, and to really reconnect. So the kitchen was smaller, and it was purpose-built. And with her dementia, her Alzheimer's,
Yeah.
that helped greatly because she knew when she went into the kitchen, it was the kitchen. We also had to figure out with 4 women, so my daughter, myself, my mother, and
I think
my
I know where you're
grandmother,
going.
who owned the kitchen.
Oh, okay, okay.
Because you do not have 4 women in a kitchen.
No, right. That's a tough one.
So who's silverware? Who owned the kitchen?
Uh-huh.
Because how you put things away is different.
That's true.
So
Yeah.
my mother owned the kitchen.
Okay.
And that was fine. I owned the silverware because I couldn't deal with the aesthetic of my mom's or my grandmother's.
Okay.
And so that was their space. In the other spaces, everyone had their own private den or family room,
Oh, terrific. Okay.
which was
so you
very
have
important.
A space where you can really be by yourself
100%.
and chill out.
Yeah, the kids needed theirs.
Uh-huh.
And then my parents, we put on the top floor, and they were in their late 70s, and they had about a heart attack when they found out they were going to be doing stairs.
Oh.
And I'm a big believer in stairs. It moves the lymph off, it helps the brain. And about 2 weeks into it, they were in much better shape.
They were good with it.
Oh, first couple of weeks were a little hard. I heard a lot of moaning and groaning.
Uh-huh.
But 100% gotten much better shape. much better attitudes, and
Yeah.
they actually thanked us for that.
Well, that's great. So there does have to be kind of a willingness to work together and take direction and understand that it's going to be different, right?
Oh.
If you're going to do the multi-generational living.
Most definitely. And one of the things I screwed up on,
Yeah.
which was storage. I didn't anticipate how much storage and then the privacy levels are very different in between generations.
Is that right? So how so?
So my grandmother, you would have never asked her age. You wouldn't have asked how much they made or what they did. Those were private matters. The same thing with her storage. You wouldn't go through her things without her permission.
Yeah.
And my kids, on the other hand, they go through everything without any permission. They
wow.
consider it fun. I
Okay.
have a little bit more of a barrier, and then my parents are kind of in between. So I didn't do that well. And in hindsight, I would have color-coded everyone's storage a different color,
Yeah.
so it was easy to find.
Okay.
So some of the things that I write about is stuff that I screwed up on.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
our mistakes are great teachers, aren't
That's
they?
exactly right.
Yeah, and so now you're bringing this information to different audiences, and how is it being received? Or if somebody wanted to, do people hire you to fit, to fit their homes with these? Or?
I don't.
Okay.
Our firm, Mosaic Design Studio, we do private pay senior living all over North America. And
So
a
you're
little
really
bit.
focused on these larger institutions of assisted living and
Exactly.
Okay.
But what we have done is we've created Best Living Tech, and it's an online curated sales catalog that has all the products that we talk about so that anybody can get to them.
Oh, that's terrific.
Yeah.
And then would it give tips on how best to use them? or-
Exactly. My blog gives tips, and then it might be a one-button radio for someone that has trouble fiddling with the dials, or a robotic cat that's going to be your companion.
A robotic cat?
Yes.
Really?
Yes, and we love the
That's-
robotic cat. My grandmother absolutely loved it.
Okay.
It might be Cardia, that is a little $99 device that can tell you 5 days before you have a stroke or a heart attack.
Really?
Yes, little tiny things that can tweak your life so much for the better.
Yeah, that sounds fascinating. And so larger organizations like AARP and are they catching on to this work that you do? Because it's so fascinating, and it seems like there's such potential for the benefiting people's quality of life.
There is. They're starting to, I think, wake up and see that the boomers are so much different, and they want options and choices, not only where they live, but how they live and how they're going to adopt technology. I was recently discussing with the medical director of AARP, and they're looking at how does someone with an attitude thrive? And they're seeing huge differences, and how do we help people have that kind of flexibility or focus on the future instead of the past?
So you're talking about how attitude, the role attitude plays in people aging
Yes,
productively or I don't know, independently, happily.
most definitely.
Yeah.
And I think part of it, and that's my mission, is how do I move people from fear to freedom? How do you, give back? Just because you might not be going to work every day doesn't mean you can't mentor a kid in reading, or mentor a business owner if you were a business owner,
Yeah.
or take up painting. Grandma Moses was, I think in her 80s when she started painting.
Yes, yeah, that's a great example.
Yeah.
And so these are the things where people keep growing and keep adding experiences and connecting with others.
Yes.
They actually benefit.
100%.
Yeah.
My mother said when she, living with the kids, I said, how do you feel about all these kids around? Because we would have band and soccer and
Yeah.
everyone around. And she says, I feel a little bit like a vampire. And I said, okay. And she said, when they come around, I suck their energy out.
She enjoys them.
Yeah, and she said, I
Yeah.
feel younger and happier, and I have more energy, and I think about things that I haven't thought about in a long time and what I want to do.
It's funny because I live in a neighborhood where it's mainly older people, right? And when we were moving there, I was saying to my husband, I'm going to miss Halloween.
Yes.
I'm going to miss the little kids coming at
Right.
the door. We live in a condo, they can't even do that. But there really is something to having all generations around
There
you.
is. There's a wisdom share
Yeah.
that I think is very powerful. And when we moved from the front porch to the backyard, or to the condo. I think we've lost a little bit of that connection.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what advice do you have for people who are just embarking on, they're not there yet with needing any kind of assisted living, but they're getting older.
Yes.
And they want to be proactive.
Yes.
So how do you begin?
So my first advice is that if you think you're not there, you're wrong. That's the first
your
thing.
First mistake.
What I see over and over again is people are making decisions because of a crisis. They don't anticipate that they, were playing tennis and they broke their hip or fell, on the ice in those states. So you never know when you're going to need it, and it might be sooner than not. So you should plan and you should investigate and you should look into everything that's out there so that you really have a good understanding of where you want to go to. I think that's the biggest thing is people wait until there's a crisis. They want to stick their head in the sand and ignore it.
Pretty human, but we all do that, don't we?
100%. So I think that's part of it. And then also figuring out, where you want to live, how you want to live, what's important to you. Everyone's different. There's no way to, define what's right or wrong for you.
Yeah. Well, we have some more visuals in the actual floor plan of your home.
Yes.
So why don't you tell us about that?
Well, the first floor plan is what the home looked like before I renovated it. We had a lot of dead-end corridors, which is really hard on anyone with cognitive issues.
Okay.
So we opened up several of the areas, and that's the floor plan down below, and it shows you the route that my grandmother was able to take when we opened that up.
So she really has a lot of room to move, and she can see all throughout the house.
100%. We didn't want any, before you would go into the living room and you'd have to come back out the same way.
Lots of dead ends.
Lots of dead ends, which is extremely frustrating. Also, not a lot of windows, and we opened up a lot of windows.
So the connection to nature is huge.
Exactly. So little things like that, and then having bathrooms that were easy to be able to get to and contrast and putting handrails and those types of things.
Okay. And let's take a look at some of the other, there's your family.
Yes.
Yeah, the full picture, and that's you with your grandma?
Grandmother, yes.
Okay.
So that was her and I on the front porch, and she sat on the front porch, weather permitting, every single day. And what I can tell you about that one is that as her dementia, Alzheimer's, started to progress, people might repeat things quite a bit.
Yes.
And the advice that I could give is to meet them where they're at.
Yeah. Don't correct them.
Don't
right?
correct them. Exactly,
Yeah.
100%.
Let them be.
Let them be. I heard 1,000 times that the tree needed to be trimmed and I needed to call the city.
So you just say, okay.
We said, okay, and I said, we need to consider this like the chorus in the song.
Now this one I love. This is your tablecloth. Tell us about this.
So this is also on connection. My mom started this years ago, and I think it's an incredible way to have a legacy and to connect. At Thanksgiving, everyone was given markers, and we write down what we're thankful for.
Aww.
And then it gets pulled out the next year, and then whoever's at the table writes down what they're thankful for. And what you don't realize is that life is so precious. And I have longevity in my family, grandparents 99, 100, 96, all of that. But I also had a 19-year-old nephew that died. And
I'm sorry.
these types of things really let you appreciate who was there at the table when and how precious life is, and
you
to be thankful.
To appreciate them and remember them.
Most
which
definitely.
Which is a great gift.
Yes.
Yeah. So, well, that's such a moving way to, and especially we're right before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
That's a great tradition for any family to begin. So tell us about your website. Tell us about how people can get in touch with you.
Well, you can reach me at lisamcini.com.
Okay.
That is mine, and that'll have everything in it. So it'll have Mosaic Design Studio, our design studio, the Mansion Project, all the books, the blogs, or you can go to bestlivingtech.com, and that'll have the robotic cat, that'll have the bidet toilet seats, that'll have all the tech that you would ever need.
Wow, that's terrific. And the name of the book?
Name of the book is Boom, the Baby Boomer's Guide. So it's about technology, but it's also got a chapter on pets. We had one of the top veterinarians write it. How do you take care of? Most boomers are aging single. There's a chapter on cannabis.
Oh,
And
really?
Yes.
We didn't get to that part, but you've done a survey, haven't you?
I have.
The
and
largest of
that's ever been
boomers?
done.
Really?
And I was just shocked that 80% of boomers use cannabis in some form.
Really?
Yes.
At this age?
At this
their
age.
current age?
And cannabis,
Is
there's
that a little, like maybe the ones who, do you think maybe the people who answered your survey? Because that's a lot.
I was very curious. So we had
Yeah.
over 15,000 respondents.
Okay.
And I also thought that the majority of them would be in the states where it was legal. That was not the case.
Really?
Not the case at all. But a lot of the CBD doesn't have what makes you high.
The THC.
So cannabis is the whole gamut. And most people use it for aches and pains and sleep.
I've heard of miraculous stories when it's used, properly for Parkinson's and
most
other
definitely.
conditions where people have gotten incredible relief. So,
most definitely.
yeah, there's certainly value there.
And then fitness equipment, smart homes, all different types of housing situations from co-housing to living on cruise ships. So all the information's in there.
Really, in your book?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm particularly intrigued with stairs, how you made your grandparents use this, or your parents use the stairs.
Yes. I made my grandmother do 5 stairs.
Did you?
Yes, and it really helped her tremendously.
Okay.
We're not meant to be stagnant.
No, we're not.
Our bodies are not wired that way.
We need to move.
We do.
We do need to move. We need to keep growing and change as we change. So
Yes.
it's been such a treat and such a pleasure to learn from you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Do you give talks? Or are you going to?
I do. I speak all over the world, really, and then write books, and also do radio shows, podcasts, those types of things.
We will look for you. We'll look
Thank
for
you.
your message. I want to thank you so much for sharing this information with us. Take a look at the book, Boom, The Baby Boomer's Guide. And Lisa, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. And the website again is?
LisaMCini.com.
Okay, thanks so much for tuning in, everyone. Have a great day.
The time really flew. We bid you adieu from community. If you want to know why we love it here, so check out